Hey people, good morning. Happy Wednesday. It's one of those Wednesdays. This Wednesday is a Monday. It's a super Monday. How is everybody? For me, it's a Monday. Good afternoon, people who are in the afternoon. I cannot even conceptualize of an afternoon right now. Morning, morning, morning. It's definitely not a good morning because it's one of those nights where your dog wakes you up in the middle of the night and then you can't get back to sleep for 2 hours. Yeah, you've all had those, right? Yeah, or that you just wake up and just can't manage to sleep for 2 hours. Yes, so I'm on the short sleeps today. Power nap is in my future. Somehow I will try to fit one in at some point. Hey there, Cleo. I don't think I've seen you before, Cleo. If you're new, hi. Welcome. Yeah. Yep. So I'm short sleep because of dog. And I was so looking forward to last night because we got to bed early for once, so we didn't stay up too late. And I was like, "Yay, I can sleep tonight." And then no. Not so much. Everybody's got those days. I'm still in a good mood, which is nice. I'm not cranky, at least not yet. So hopefully I can head off any crankiness with a nap at some point. Hello, Princess Zelda. Hello. Is that a howl? Happy Wednesday. It's a Wednesday. I'll give you Wednesday. It's not happy yet. Oh, okay, cool, Cleo. Well, great. Thanks. I'm glad you enjoy it. Hello, Gergie. Hello, everybody. GVD Minis morning. I don't think I've seen you before either. Yeah, so here we are, and we're doing that silly underpainting and overhead lighting thing and light sourcing thing. it's Kiri thinks that it's howling every day unless we keep an eye on her. If we left her alone in the apartment, she'd howl at the dogs going by in the park across the street. She has done this before. It is ridiculous. Sounds like we have a wolf in our apartment. Awesome. Hey, everybody. Oh, okay. Yeah. How do I do this 5 or 6 times a week and keep my sanity? I have no idea. Actually, it's 7 days a week now, or seven times a week now in Ara, because I've been trying to get Twitch affiliate on my own channel. So now I've been doing Tuesday, Wednesdays as well. In fact, this afternoon I'm going to be streaming on twitch.tv/paintingbig at 3:30 Central, my old time, with the old Reaper toolbox. Because since Reaper doesn't have any programming in there right now, I just decided I would do it. And I think we only have like one more week. Like after today, it'll be 2 more shows, and then I should have Twitch affiliate. So, and once I get it, it doesn't go away. So that's nice. Yes, Anne loves us. I don't know. Some days it's nice in the morning in Ara, honestly, because it helps me like kind of regiment my day. Like that's the problem with freelancing, right? Is that you lose the track of the days of the week, and it can all run into itself. So having a job to go to in the morning every morning actually is a really good start to my day. Especially because everybody's so happy and usually cheerful and everybody's, having fun. So it's actually a pretty good start to feel like I've got a part-time job that I go and be social in the morning, long distance, like everybody now, right? It's not like that's special anymore. Yeah, I know, right? Yes. Yeah, so morning Mathophile. Morning Stephen Phillip and Jay and Rax. Alrighty. Oh my god, there's a mini Rax, guys. Look at that. So now, poof, a mini Rax will appear. In fact, did appear this morning. Congrats, Rax. Jeremiah Dallas. Jeremiah's a great name. Malamute, he doesn't even know how to howl. Every other dog does. That's weird, Princess Zelda, because usually Malamutes are pretty talky. Although not necessarily howling, but woo-woo. They woo-woo. They're woo-woo dogs. The most talkative dogs that I've met actually are Samoyeds. As far as the sled dogs. Although Samoyeds technically weren't just a sled dog, they're primarily a herding and family dog. So they're an interesting Spitz breed. Awesome. But yes, Rex, congrats on the new addition to your family. Super. Well, let's switch to Snake Cam, guys. I think it's time for Snake Cam. It's Snake Cam. Here we are. So we didn't get to much color yesterday because we were distracted and trying to finish up the mapping out. I am going to try a stand camera today. We have a fresh sheet of gray paper, which is the awesome gray construction paper. I can't remember if it's medium gray or if it's slate is the color, but I like using grays for camera work because it doesn't make the camera color shift. It's very handy that way. So let's do this and like get my hand behind it. Let's try to stay on camera today, but since I am sleepy, no promises. We'll do our best. Yay! New 1/1 scale minis. Cute, cute. Awesome. So yeah, yesterday, if you'll recall, the color that I chose for her belly scales, I wanted a tan. I wanted a tan primarily, actually, well, both because I kind of always think of that as a good belly color for snakes. And I was thinking that I might want to go with a deeper green for the scales, so I thought it would go well. Also, you can get some nice saturated tans. Probably my two favorite tans to work with are 9073 Chestnut Gold and 9430 Polished Leather. And when you add white to these, they really still keep a lot of saturation. They go up to a nice golden color. This can be useful for a lot of things. So they're very useful for shading like blonde hair. They're useful for doing things like I was just giving a recipe on my Patreon Discord the other day to Margaret about lions and leopards and things that need kind of tan shadows in their fur or a little bit of brown in their fur. These colors are good for. Hello, Twisted Doma. This technique works great on pretty much everything, Real Chibi Army. It actually, David does it all the time on busts and bigger models. But for this particular dramatic light sourcing, actually, I will be doing it. If you guys have been following me over at my regular Twitch when I'm working on my gigantic horse and the rider, I'm going to do a very dramatic overhead light source on those figures. So if you watch this and then you go over as that project develops, you will see that I'm going to be doing it on a 54 millimeter model, which is larger. So, but yeah, it scales up on a bust just fine. In fact, I think it's even easier on a bust. Usually if you're light sourcing on a bust, it's something the bust is holding. If you guys have seen David's alchemist that he did with the green alchemical fire in front of him, that's like an excellent example of how you can utilize this technique, because the fire would be a hot white, and then it was going to essentially hit everything on the front of the figure, right? And then you got to kind of imagine where it's going to hit, like on the underside of the face and stuff like that. I think he's got pictures of his alchemist up on lightminiatures.com. Light as in the light that comes down from above. But it's a good example of doing it on a bust. And that's a bigger bust too. Yay. Yeah, hey Dogfather. Happy hump day or something. All right, so I am on short sleep, but I'm going to do green today, gosh darn it, and maybe some purple, and maybe some blue. I don't know, we're going to have fun. So David suggested, speaking of the boyfriend, if you have a boyfriend bingo card, you know, you can mark that in, obviously, twice now for this show. Suggested that I use a colder green for shadows and a warmer green for highlights before I even add in the yellow. And that made sense to me. So what we're going to do is we're going to do our Tianzia Jade in all the areas that are black. And then we'll start bringing in our Naga Green over that and just go up to Naga Green on the areas that are white. So we're essentially doing a cool to warm fade. And you can see that the Tianzia is much cooler with a lot more of a blue hint. And Naga is one of our more saturated yellowy greens. So yeah, you do. Yeah, Jill, this is a cool mini. I really like her a lot. David will be using her for his OSL class at ReaperCon Online. So, good mini to pick up for practice for light sourcing. And since you have this stream now that you can go back and watch on YouTube or on Twitch VODs, you will be able to reference, should you choose to paint her like I am. Alrighty, let's get my palette in here. Now, I am using the Well palette. As I mentioned yesterday when I was wrestling with the Wet palette, I really like the Wet palette for doing the black and white block in. I think it's actually very intuitive and I love it. But for everything, for putting in the colors, I really want my paint at a certain consistency. So instead I am back to my traditional Well palette. Because this way I can mix up wells of these colors. I I don't think so, Mathophile. I don't think that would read right. I don't know. The snake, I'm thinking about putting even some dark blue into some of her scales. So we'll see. We'll see. Blue would be just in the very deepest shadows if I utilize the ultramarine shadow that I've got here. Because blue, of course, and again, something that you have to think about here, okay, is what is the, if there's any ambient light source that isn't warm, right? So if there is an ambient light source that's like a cool blue, like a twilight outside or any like other kind of, you know, if you want to suggest just a cool shadow, if you want to suggest she's out at night, for example, where shadows will definitely be cooler, because there is almost always some ambient starlight or moonlight, then you're okay, you're within your rights to like do some bluer shadows. But if you are in a cave and the only light source is her fireball, all of your ambient light is going to go, every light is going to be warm light. So I would not use blue in that case because they're complementary colors and they would just end up bleaching each other out. Like you'd end up getting grayed out shadows. You always got to think about, hey, Miniatures Den, how's it going? Like, I always see us rating you and hosting you, and I never see you on my stream. Hi. It's good to see you. I hear you like my paint. Do you like my Master Series paint? Because if I hear you do, and that makes me happy, always. It makes me happy when another painter likes the thing I created for 17 years for Reaper. Hey, Planer. Good to see you. Just trying to catch up on various stuff here. Oh yeah, some people I'm talking about work that because I mentioned that that everybody, you know, works from home now. I'm not alone. Very often, you're very often in here, but you don't necessarily chat. That's cool. We have a lot of lurkers. So, all right. So anyway, as I was saying, you do have to kind of keep in mind what your ambient is, what your light source is. I had kind of thought I wouldn't introduce cool colors, but after David mentioned that he thought it would be interesting if I did a cool to warm green, then I'm got to shift my focus more and think, well, maybe she is outside. Maybe I can go with some cooler shift colors in the shadows, because not all the light will be warm then. So this seems like a lot of thinking, I'm sure, for a model, but to get your light sourcing to look right, like anybody can do an OSL and make it look simple and cool, and most people won't think too hard about it. But if you want to be able to walk up to some guy like Matt DiPietro, who is really, really into his light, or David, and get feedback that doesn't involve well, you shouldn't have used this color because really, then you want to think about this stuff. You want to think about how the color of the light is going to influence the color of everything else on the piece. And to be fair, David and Matt both have called me on my light sourcing. So having been down that road, I could tell you just kind of grit your teeth and go for a while, and then you acknowledge that they're right, and then you set out to get better. Traveling merchant is like in D&D profession. That's true. You apply for traveling merchant. It is cool. You can, Carrie Michael Cosby, you can lurk all you want. Lurkers are welcome here. All right, so we've got our Tianzia Jade, which is our favorite Pathfinder color. Please buy a lot of it so they keep making it. It's the closest thing to Phthalo Green. The Phthalo Green I did for ReaperCon. So keep it in print, please. Actually, kind of a mixture of this with just a touch of Peacock Green, 9226, would give you a pretty good simulated Phthalo, with actually a bit better coverage. So as usual, I'm starting with about 4 drops of paint in my palette. And then once I add water, I'm going to go with a 2-to-1 straight out here. So 2 drops of water. At least 6 drops of paint in each of these little wells when you're building a color means that there's enough fluid in the well for there to be like not as much surface area exposed, meaning that your paint will stay at the correct consistency for longer. If you want, you can build even bigger paint puddles. I often, if I'm working by myself on a project for several hours, I will build 8-drop puddles, as I find that's actually the optimal puddle size. 6 is a little low, but since I'm only doing the stream for an hour and a half, hour plus, so to speak, I find I don't have to add as much water to keep things at a decent consistency. Now, right away out the gate, we know I want this pretty thin, so I've got to kind of watch how it's falling off the sides of the palette here. This looks about perfect. It might even be just a little bit strong, but I'll try it over some of the black scales and see. This looks like it's quite strong. See how it's falling off the side of the palette, but it's not nearly as see-through as this? Since I'm glazing, and I don't want to lose all of my colors here, I don't want to lose all my black-white primer, right? I'm using this to help me with my lighting. So that means I might want an extra drop of water in this, which brings us to 4:3, almost to a 1:1. The reason that Naga is so strong is that it is, like many Bones paints and the old HDs, it's built with high solids pigments, high densities, to make it have better coverage, even though normally a yellowish green doesn't have very good coverage. So that's why you're seeing that. That's why it's a stronger color. Will David be posting what colors he'll be using for the class? Yeah, he sent in all that information, Gurgi, to Reaper, so it should be in the class description. I think. They just put up a tentative schedule beginning. They started hacking out the schedule to get us all to approve it. I think there are still classes coming in. I heard that Mocha hadn't put hers in yet, for example. So yeah. This is a class that is promised, and it has been submitted to Reaper and accepted, Sarduki, and we are now in, as I just said, tentative scheduling land, where Reaper has sent us out tentative scheduling where we can all look at how our classes have been scheduled and okay them, essentially. We are now in the actual getting there, with the finalization of the schedule. Since nobody has to plan travel and hotel and stuff, Reaper is probably busy. They're busy as heck trying to set this up, and they're also probably saying, well, we don't have to put it up 3 months in advance or 4 months in advance this time, because nobody needs to know they got their classes to travel. Everybody can take the class. If you want a class, you can get it. We do international shipping. I know that. Hordista, what'll happen is that it'll actually get shipped out of our UK warehouse. We have a UK warehouse. So if you order from Reaper, you'll get, essentially, I think you'll go to the EU storefront. Yeah. Yeah, we did that on purpose so that we could ship better. Unfortunately, that was before Brexit. I think a lot of people kind of got, burned on that. I think we should have gone somewhere styling, like, Germany, Spain, France. Maybe like, Amsterdam. Yeah. But it's too late. I have no idea, Stephanie. These are all things that are getting hashed out. I do know that there are supposed to be supply lists and even packages, I think, for some classes, I think. They might want to sell it all in a thing for a class, like class kits is what they were calling it. So that if you don't have the stuff and you just want to order all the stuff, you can. That's what I'd heard. Again, I'm no longer going to the meetings because I am in California and not in Texas. So don't quote me on that, but that is hypothetically what they had planned. Either way, we all had to enter in the colors that we were going to use in the class. So Reaper presumably will be using that information. Yeah, Belgium would be cool too. Yeah, Reaper could have picked so many other cool places. But we also needed one of our employees and his whole family to immigrate over there and live over there to run our operation. So I guess it was easier to go to Britain just because everybody speaks English with the kids and all that, because Kit has like 5 or 6 kids. So but yeah, sensible countries with a stable political system. Are there any of those left? Seems like a rarity these days, Ty. I don't know. The world is crazy. The world is crazy. They'll just leave it at that. Yeah, I'm sure you could find good cooking in the UK. I mean, the British people know how to have breakfast. Like, they do good breakfasts. All right, I'm going to actually talk and paint at the same time. You guys are totally distracting today. And remember, I'm on short sleep because I stayed, my dog woke me up, guys, and so I couldn't get back to sleep for 2 hours in the middle of the night. So I have the attention span of a 6-week-old kitten right now. So yeah, if you get a fun conversation going, Anne is gonna go wee and get off topic. So let's actually put paint on the model and not talk about other things like ReaperCon, much as we would love to. So I'm gonna be glazing this cool green color over the black scales. I just want a little bit of hint. Remember, the reason we're putting only this very thin coat over here is twofold. One, we want to keep some of our white color. If we do cross over some of these scales, we want to keep that white color showing through from our earlier underpainting. And two, remember, we want to keep our shadows very, very dark. So putting a glaze over this black suggests color without putting a lot of color on it. Hey, it's Zambies. It's a wild Zambies. Poof. You may be one. Or the rest you order after. Curry, hey. Britain has amazing curry restaurant. Amazing Indian food. Oh my God. Like, seriously. The only place I think... the only place I've seen more Indian restaurants is right here where I live now. Which is the South Bay. Which is Silicon Valley. Because there's so many Asian people and Indian people who work in this area. And so there are a lot of amazing Indian places, which is not good for my waistline. Not good for my waistline. But it thrills me because there were really no really good Indian places when I was living in North Texas. You know what? I feel like I need to get better focus here. Hold on while I focus. I mean, I need better focus in general, but I need better focus on the model, darn it. Don't try Chinese in Ireland. No, yeah. I can believe that. We also forgot to put some of our glaze of the gold, the polished leather down here on the bottom belly scales, but that's fine. We've got time. All right, I'm going to try my Naga green up here on the top. I'm still concerned that it's a little bit thick. Like, you want it so that the paint will go nicely over the primer. You want it thick enough for that, but you don't want it too thick. Let's see if this works. They know how to make tea. English people know how to make tea, and their breakfasts are tasty. And then there's the Indian food. Yes. So I'm going to kind of cross over these two greens on this one row of scales from warm to cool so that we can get kind of a fade going on there. And then... yeah, that's easy there, right, Chibi? Now, if you can do that at a native Thai restaurant, then you're scary. Native run Thai restaurant. Insult the chef hot. No, don't do that. So yeah, it's pretty easy to do a fade when you're working with really thin colors, right? So then you can get that kind of like transition. I still have some speckles going on, but those should disappear as I introduce my highlights, which is why I'm going to add my lantern yellow into a well now. And I'm going to do a little bit of white in it, remember, because we kind of decided that it was about a 50-50 mix. Poof, a wild David appears. Somebody asked if you could use this technique on busts, and I referred them to your alchemist bust as far as light sourcing on busts goes. Is that your OSL tutorial? Is he your subject?
No, he is the like little header photo for that, but the subject is King of Death.
But oh, that's right. But he is on the site, right? Your alchemist dude. All right. Yes. Yeah, Dragon Eye, exactly. That's where you get some nervous eyeballs if you ask them to make it as hot as they possibly can in Thai restaurants, right? If you don't warn them that your mother is Thai, or you grew up in Thailand or whatever. There's always a qualifier, but I have some friends. Well, John Bono is one, although he's mellowed out in his old age, who used to pretty much ask for them to make it, insult the cook hot or slap your mama hot, And one day, I will never forget it, he came home from the Thai place. He'd gone to pick up a to-go order for us all. And his green curry was red. It had so much chili paste in it. It was terrible. I mean, he thought it was amazing. He loved it, but oh my gosh. They got used to him over time. All right, let's see here. Nomad Zeke is funny. But yes, there's all sorts of John Bono stories from the old days, the bad old days. Let's see here. All right, so I'm going to mix in some of this lantern yellow and white mixture to hit some of my scales that have the lightest color. So we're doing two things here, right, guys? We're when we paint with glazes like this over a zenith base coat, I mean, this is one way to do it, right? You can just do this and you'll be pretty good. But even better is when you're doing now what we're doing now, which is just use this as a guidelines. Eventually you will cover up all your zenith priming. But as you go your first layers are glazes, you at least retain this information so that then you can use that as you build up your highlights. And by the time you're done highlighting and adding some shadows, maybe reinforcing your shadows down here, you'll have covered up your zenith prime with more solid color, but you'll still have utilized it, right, for the information that you wanted it to provide. So hey, good luck. Good afternoon.
And that will fix all the specklies.
And it will fix all the specklies, like David says. So it's what you don't want to do is you don't want to put a really solid base coat down after you do zenith prime. That's like, why did you bother? Actually, that was funny because it happened at Sergio's class. I was prepping the minis for Sergio's workshop, and I asked him if he wanted a zenith prime, and he shrugged and said, sure, but it doesn't matter. It's because he goes out of the gate with really thick paint, so it really, the only use for it then is to take a picture when it's zenith primed, and if you want to highlight that way. So, let's see here. Shepherd's pie. Tasty. I love shepherd's pie. I should try a shepherd's pie. I don't eat potatoes these days, but I do love turnips. I wonder if you could make a killer shepherd's pie with turnips instead of the mashed potatoes. I bet you could. Or maybe mashed cauliflower with garlic in it. That might be good. I like to switch things up. I made a turnip au gratin the other night, which went over very well. I'm trying to stay on camera here. Oh, I love parsnips. We had parsnips last night, Chibi. Parsnip is my favorite roasted vegetable.
Really?
I love them. Yes. It is my fave now. Like, hands down. I love them. I don't know what it is. I hadn't had them up until, like, relatively recently. I tried them for the first time when I was still in Texas.
Is the combo root vegetables that you sometimes do with pork that has, like, turnip and apple and onion, and I forgot what all you put in it.
It's yeah. It has turnips. Sometimes we put a couple of pieces of potato in just for you, but more often it's turnip, parsnip, onion, carrot, and apple, I think, is my total root veggie mix. The apple is to add sweetness. And it works really well for pork, especially if you're glazing. Yeah, if you're glazing your pork, see, we're on topic, right? If you're glazing your pork with honey, which I like to do, like for pork loin roast, then adding a chunked up apple to your roasting root veggies it's a beautiful compliment. Let's just put it that way. So I'm adding more yellow mixed in with my Naga green up closer to the belly here. Sorry, trying to stay in focus and on camera, and it's like really, really a trial here. And I'm also noticing some areas where if I want the highlight really following sharply here, then I need to fix that shadow there. I probably need to mix up some of my polished leather to correct maybe a special Patreon goal. And the next AMA, all of Anne's recipes for veggies. Patreon goal for Anne's recipe book. Great. I do have a little journal that I keep my recipes in, you know. That's why French cuisine, like, kicks butt. I may be one. Like, Julia Child pretty much taught me to cook, so I am forever indebted to her and her overuse of butter. Although these days I cannot always have a drink of wine every time I use wine in food. I know that's a Julia thing that I no longer can indulge in, but. And actually, if you have the salt, fat, acid, heat book, which is awesome, and a lot will educate you a bit about why things and what things and how to cook on the most basic level. She talks about the different fats that are used in different regions of the world because of, some places have a lot of pasture land, so that's why butter is big in France. But then other places use different kinds of fats that are more standard, like olive oil in Italy, right? So it's very interesting to look at what fats are common in different areas of the world in the cuisine, because the fat really does define a lot of things about the cuisine. Yeah, we watched it in our. It's a good one. We wish she'd done more episodes. But she's probably busy since she is a chef, and presumably, works and stuff. That's the problem when you get like people like that to do a TV show. Is it's just like they have such busy lives, they usually can't commit to have to doing nothing but TV show for you. I am just trying to minimize some shadows here with my mixture of polished leather and a little bit of our lantern yellow plus white. Just essentially trying to play down some shadows in these little areas. I left too much shadow here, and so I wanted to fill that in a little bit. I still want that pretty dark, but I don't want a really black hole there. Ugly Delicious. Did we try that one?
Did we try that one?
We tried the something delicious and we didn't like it. The other delicious one. Crazy Delicious. Yeah, that one was not good. It was a crazy show. Too reality show, not enough food. Has to be a fine balance. Has to be mostly, the Great British Baking Show being the ultimate example of what a good reality food TV show should be. But as we have watched all of the seasons, we can no longer turn to that for our evening TV. I'm just going to bring up the yellow on these scales here on the side. You can see how that's coming up. We have a fade down to that teal color. I think I'm going to bring that up just a little bit more. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a big peas person. No, I haven't watched Nailed It. Is it too reality TV? With the host, I was afraid that there was going to be too reality TV, real chibi. If it's too much reality TV and not enough awesome cooking, then I really lose interest pretty fast. You really like... Oh, it's funny. Okay. Well, funny has something going for it. But I'm not a big fan of reality. Oh, it's bad cooks baking badly. I would not enjoy it then. Yeah, I don't go for sad. That's why I'm not a fan of reality TV normally. I mean, there are a couple of reality shows that kind of changed my mind a little bit. But the ones that really emphasize the bad, I just feel bad for the people. I have too much empathy. And then since I'm feeling bad for the people, I don't enjoy it. Like, I don't enjoy feeling that way, so... Maybe we'll try one episode, Chibi. Alright, so we've got a green fade going on. We've got our yellow. We're bringing our scales up a little bit here. If I really want to lose these little speckles, I'm going to have to bring my green in more strongly now and make a more solid coat. So once you've figured out where your lighting is and what color your scales should be, you can put on the paint enough to really knock out a lot of those little speckles. Or all of them. I've thinned my paint a fair bit, so it may take me a coat or two. There we go. Get a little bit. When you're highlighting scales, do try to kind of keep in mind the light source, but this is fair. There. Hell's Kitchen. Yeah, I don't know about him, but he's not my favorite, but yeah, that could be a decent one to watch. Zumboos. What's Zumboos, Mathophile? Knew I should have asked you guys for new suggestions. Alrighty, so I want to bring up a pure yellow where it makes sense. Which is going to be right up next to these scales here. So I'm grabbing some of our lantern. Actually, I might put some more white into it. Going to make a separate puddle of lantern yellow. 1 drop of lantern yellow to 3 drops white. Maybe even 4. just because I want a lighter yellow. Down here, the more mellow yellow is good, but as I get higher, I'm going to want a lighter yellow. Zumbu or Zambu? He's a desert guy from Aussie Really or dessert guy from Aussie Really complicated dessert. Huh. Interesting. I like complicated desserts. Yes, deserts and desserts are definitely different things. This is true. So yeah, let's go to 4-1. White lantern yellow there. And throw in a couple drops of water. Yeah, we like, I mean, for a long time when we were dating, David and I would always watch British Bake Off before bed, and so it's kind of a tradition now. So now that we've unfortunately run through all of the seasons, and probably because of COVID, I'm imagining they didn't get to shoot one this year. We've got to look for an alternative. Family therapist in the UK version. That's interesting. Good for you, Zombie Leftovers. I watch extremely little. Like, before David came along, like, extremely, extremely little. The only time I would ever watch any TV was when I was at a friend's house and they had a TV on. Because I didn't own a TV and I didn't want one. So I do not like putting much of my time into television. I consider it kind of a waste of my time. But before bed, I'm tired enough. I'm not going to get anything constructive done. So I don't feel like I'm wasting energy on TV at that point. Feels like there should be a tiny scale in there or something. I'm just adjusting. So I've got some yellow, some definite yellow coming up on the edges of these scales here. I want it to read correctly. It's looking pretty nice. Yeah, if you're using it as background noise, or you just like to have it, have it on as a separate thing. Like, I know a lot of people who paint using it as background noise. I can't. I find it too distracting because even as a kid, I didn't watch a lot of TV, so I'm not really desensitized to TV and movies. I can't just ignore it. If it's up, I'm going to watch it. So for me, for my productivity, I have to be careful. I am going to try to lighten up just a little bit of a couple of these scales. And then I'll bring up my yellow. Go a little stronger up here. There we go. Yeah, I like that. We'll rock that. And it kind of goes down to a dark, you see that dark greenish fade on the bottom? Hey, Skelsey, it's up. I like listening to music. Yeah, don't get me wrong. That's actually, when I'm painting, that's my favorite background. I'm going to take just a little bit of this Naga green, I think, and just pick out some little scales. Some of the little scales down here, just to suggest a little bit of warm bounce light from that fireball. Because I like to do a little bit, something just a little bit. You see, bring them out just a little. And you can still keep a lot of your, you can still keep your light sourcing even if you concentrate the highlights on the tops or edges of the scale. Then you can have your cake and eat it too. You can suggest like the little tips of the scales. There we go. Now we can see those scales a little better. And if I wanted to, I could do a glaze again with the cold jade. The other thing we could do is we could grab our jade and a little bit of white and kind of bring up a little bit of highlight, like bounced highlight on the backside, underside, just a little. But that's dicey because then you risk losing your strong light sourcing. So if you're going to do that sort of thing, just a little bit of highlighting, just a little bit to make the details come out at most. You want to keep it pretty cold down there. I'm going to grab actually a little bit more of my jade and glaze it again. And since I'm glazing, it's going to preserve the highlight I just did. It's just going to make it colder. I still have some little speckles. Like, if I were really going to town, I would want to attack those speckles and kill them. But right now, we're just going for effect to show you guys how to do this. So that looked like a mold line, but it's actually not a mold line. It's just my brush strokes ending at the same place. All right, so having done that, let us do her arms. When you consider it, Chris Air, I don't consider it. I actually think I probably waste more paint on my well palette or my wet palette. Or I waste the same amount because on my wet palette, I'm putting down like 4 or 5 drops of paint and I'm using only a tiny fraction of it. And in my well palette, I'm putting down roughly the same amount of paint and I'm using just a tiny fraction of it. But when it comes down to it, I think the whole concept of wasting paint is just silly. And the reason I think it's silly is that you're using, 4, 5, 6 drops of a color. You've got 400 drops of paint in every bottle. And even if you lose some of the tail end of that because it's getting old or thickening a bit because it's getting way down in the bottle, it's going to take you, you get 100 days of painting with the same color, which is very unlikely, before you run out. So for me, like the whole wasting paint thing, it's just, yeah. I mean, I've got so many bottles of paint and the only colors I ever run out of are ones that I do use every day. Things like pure white, pure walnut brown. Sometimes blue liner or brown liner will get low. But even then, like, because I alternate back and forth with my darks, like I'll use brown liner one day, blue liner one day. I'm shifting my dark color depending on what I'm painting. I would say really that only walnut brown and pure white are in danger of me running out. And I paint every freaking day. So most of you guys don't. So the whole concept to me of wasting paint is just kind of silly. It's like, it's just a casualty. You're going to lose a couple of drops every time you use it because you have to, because you need to, for this, you need to put enough paint and water in these wells for this to stay at the right consistency. So you don't have to constantly be adjusting it and it's not drying out. And then, on the other side, on the wet palette side, I get irritated after a while with the paint because the water's leaching up into it, making it thinner, and maybe messing with some of my, just balance as far as spot mixing stuff. So for me, it's just like, either way, there's going to be a chunk of paint I won't use. It's just fine. It's still going to take me a couple years or more to go through any bottle that's not pure white or walnut or one of the liners. All right, so I'm blocking in this jade color on all the shadows. I want it really dark and cool. You can see it a little bit there. Yeah, I hear people say I don't want to waste paint all the time. And I'm like, seriously? It's going to take you years to go through a bottle. A bottle is $3.29. And you're probably, there's only a couple colors you're going to use that much of. So, I mean, either way, it doesn't concern me. Even if it was wasting, even if I look at it as blatantly wasting 6 drops of every color I use when I paint, I'm still not concerned. I mean, I try to mix up only what I'm using. Like here, today I didn't mix up that polished leather until I absolutely knew I was going to use it. I mean, but that's just smart. Yeah, that's just logic. Interesting. On PBS, huh? Yeah, I know there's lots of awesome cooking shows out there that we could go for. The real problem is finding kind of that good mixture of a show that's engaging but isn't like gonna get my brain excited and keep it up. I still need to sleep after watching it. So yeah, it's interesting, Twisted Elma. Maybe I'll look that one up. And we're going to use our Naga green and go over the top here. We're going to end up taking that up way with yellow, though. Like, I'm just going to put in a thin glaze, really, of this Naga. Because this really is going to come up to the yellow pretty fast. And I'm going to put some Naga here. Now notice, you know, wherever I didn't put white, it's going to be very hard to build up lighter color. And possibly the only way to do it at this point would be with underpainting. Like if I had decided that there was some fire showing through and hitting the arm here, I'd probably have to go in really lightly like that with my yellow and lantern yellow and white mixture and kind of underblock it to get the top of that arm and then go over it. So you can correct like that. You can course correct if you look at it and you're like, oh, I really needed to have it lighter here. Or like here, I really needed to have it lighter further down. So taking a little bit of your yellow and white mixture and correcting the shape of this highlight because it really needs to be more rounded. There. More like that. Maybe even a little further down. You can always reglaze. Yeah, I mean, yeah, discontinued paints. But I mean, Francis, once you learn to mix, discontinued paints are not a big deal. It's a rare beast of a paint that you cannot get close to with mixes. Like, the only ones that I would say are really hard to hit with mixes or impossible to hit with mixes, mostly impossible, are things like the Phthalo Green that Reaper put out for ReaperCon that one year. And the reason is that that's a single pigment color. So if you don't have that pigment in pure form, then you can't do an exact match. But at the same time, you can certainly do a good enough match, you know, with your Tianzia Jade and maybe a drop of Peacock Green. It won't be quite the same, but it'll be close, right? So once you get used to mixing, say with the clears and colors, other colors that are very saturated and relatively limited in pigment, out of print colors don't really matter much anymore. You're still annoyed because you'd like to have a whole bottle of it, but as I said, I mean, unless it's even if you have like an out of print color, it's still got, 400 drops of paint in there. If you just add a little bit of water to it from year to year and shake it well, it'll keep going for probably a very long time, since it's unlikely that one of those out of print colors is something you use every day. Now, if you're unlucky enough to choose it for an army color or something, yeah, okay, then you're kind of screwed. But in general, it's possible to get close to a lot of things. The only reason I'm using green here, I think most people use green just because, I honestly, to be fair, Inara, I almost never use green these days unless it's an olive green. So the fact that I'm using these particular colors is unusual for me. I feel like I looked in my paint tray the other day, my drawer where I have all the colors that I use the most. I have 3 greens in there, 3 in like 100 paints. So that tells you how little I tend to normally reach for greens. But the main reason I went green on her is because I wanted to do the yellowish light source. And I think that the yellow-orange light on the green is a good combo. So I am going to do purple on the cloth too. So I'm kind of going with a secondary triad on this. Actually, if you think about it, guys, I am. Since there's orange up here and green here and purple here. Although I mostly am going toward yellow shift here. So you could argue that this is a complementary scheme with an additional color thrown in. Because you could argue that if you argue that this isn't orangey enough and that it is actually a yellow, then you've got a yellow and then you've got the purple cloth that I'm going to be putting in. So then it would be a purple-yellow complementary scheme with some green as an accent. It depends, right? It depends on how much green I end up putting in. Now, I've got a lot of green on the back of the model because I'm going to have a lot of this scales here. But if I put some other colors into the scales, that's going to minimize it. So, yeah. But I think green is a natural choice for snake people. I just like green. Since the point of this this particular project isn't the snake, it's the lighting, there's like some things I could cover on this that I'm not. Like I'm not doing a really, really intricate pattern on the scales of many different colors. If you do that, you're going to want to go very neutral or simple with your other colors on the figure, because then the point of it really is the patterning on the scales and making it look cool. I am just trying to map out my shadows again so that I can get my my arms to look cool like over here. And then I'm going to start highlighting with yellow closer to the fireball. But my first glazes are going to be the green. I do want the color of the model down before I put the color of the light down on it, or over it, or in it. Those button counters are going to come for you, Ultra Squid. We try to convince people of that all the time. And there are still people in the historical community that are like, no, it has to be, you know, SS Camo Black Brown. You get the same kind of thing. Oh, you don't get as much of the same thing in the fantasy circles, I guess. People are pretty embracing of do it your own way in our particular hobby, because fantasy is like fantasy. It's not like you can produce a unicorn to prove what color it is. And if you could produce a unicorn, everybody would just be like, oh cool, a unicorn. Can I get a purple one? Yeah, Jen, I think, did use more naturalistic colors on that. You totally can. I just like green. So dang it, I'm going to paint my snake person green. If you want to paint your snake person in a color other than green, you may. And I will not give you any grief over it. But I like the green. And I don't get to paint with bright greens very often. Alrighty, now I can start putting in some light. Now we can still see, notice that even though I've glazed pretty heavily over here, we can still see where the light goes. We can still see our black shadow right there and how harsh it is. So the areas that are closest to the light source, these scales are pretty loosely sculpted up here. I could go a bit tighter with them, but I'm kind of just stippling the pattern because it's really fine. I could use a side brush maybe, but they really are tiny little scales. I'm going to start with just my yellow, I think. Well, maybe I'm going to actually start with my... And I have to watch that shadow behind the hand because it's... I have to narrow that down probably. It's a little bit... Well, I guess it does look correct. As long as it looks right, but I feel like I have to make it a little smaller. Maybe I got a little too bold with it. There, that's a little bit better. Faded it out just a little. Well, then do it, Francis. Nobody's gonna care. Especially if you're GMing and you just like throw a pink frost giant at them, they're gonna be like, ah, pink frost giant. And you're gonna be like, yes, die. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, do what you want. I mean, there are definitely, I guess that does, though, you bringing that up does remind me that, yes, indeed, there are purists in our land of happy fantasy, which are the D&D people. Some of, specifically, the first edition or second edition D&D people, who, when monsters change colors from one edition of D&D to the next, get very irate. So I'm using the side of my brush, and I've got a little bit of this yellow on it, and I'm just pretty much like wet brushing. Not really a dry brush because I'm just doing a slight... If you're not doing this, it's not dry brushing. If you're getting a little bit of paint on your brush and gently dragging it over the top of the scales, that's a little bit different. So I wanted to bring out some of the texture there. And now that I brought it out, I can paint it a little easier. I could also do a wash if I wanted, but we'll see how it goes. I think that having brought the scales out so I can see them a little better, I can now come in with my brush, and if I want to hit each little individual scale, I can. Because Bob did sculpt every little individual scale, so... Or, sorry, Chris did. This is a Chris Lewis, I keep forgetting. So, since Chris put the time to put these little tiny scales in, the least we can do is try to paint them. Although they are so little that if you just want to use your brush, the side of your brush to pick them up, you can. Alrighty, let's see here. Once again, now I'm going to be kind of looking up at my fire and seeing, yeah, it will hit this area right here. So I want to bring that up for sure, this area on the back of the arm that sticks out, her muscle there. That is definitely light. Now we could go and just block it in yellow also. We could do a very, very strong yellow. That was the yellow-white mix. I can come in with a much stronger yellow. And again, trying to focus on where the light is falling will give you a more dramatic effect. And using the yellow as totally a fill color, like ignoring texture, like I am here, makes sense for an area that is facing the light. Whereas up here, where the scales are more parallel to where the light is coming out, it makes more sense to pick up the little details. But I still might glaze with my color up top if I need to take it more yellow. And I do want the light to come out. I want to kind of maybe pick up some of these scales out here. She doesn't have a real defined muscle on the other side. So I've got to think about, now I've got to think about where my light's coming from. Okay, so we've got this kind of mapped out, but we still needed to really show the directionality of the light. So let's grab our white, 4 drops of white and 1 drop of lantern yellow. Thin it down until it's a glaze. So pretty much I took 1 brush full out of my... like even half a brush full out of the well, and I threw a ton of water into it. You can see it right there, how thin it is. It's just colored water. I essentially built a wash with it of sorts. I almost always just add white or an off-white fire dragon because I'm familiar enough with the paint line that I'm just like, you know, if I want a lighter version of a color, I'll add either white or off. In this case, since my light source is the pale yellow, I'm adding this instead of white because I want all my highlights to reflect that color so that it actually looks like the fireball is the only light source on the mini. So no matter what color everything else is, it's all going to get highlighted up to these. But yeah, normally I find I just like dealing with pure and more saturated colors, and so I tend to just add white for my highlights rather than reaching for a whole bunch of different colors to highlight with. Often I think that reaching for a bunch of different colors can just confuse the issue. That said, there are combos that I really like using a medium blue and highlighting it with Surf Aqua, for example, and then going up to white. So I sometimes will do a 2-step, but I don't think I do anything more than a 2-step usually. Not enough coffee? Yeah, not enough caffeine in general. For me either this morning. Alrighty. Well, let's do, actually, you know what? Before I do anything else, I want to do her little face. Because I like her little face. I think I'm going to give her a ruby red eye. You know what would be fun to do her as? An albino cobra, guys. That would be cool. Or an albino snake in general. That would be a fun snake to do this on. It would have made for a very boring lighting reference, though, so... Thinning down my green a bit. We want to use the warm green up here because her face is right under the fire. Uh-oh, I got some cool green on the other side. I'm going to have to fix that. I mean, I want some cool green over there, but not quite that close to the warm greens. And this is cool because we can keep part of her face really in harsh shadow. because it's turned away from the light a little. See, it's turned away from the light. So that's pretty cool. If I wanted to make her eyes glowy, I could suggest a glint of red back there once I put the crimson eye in on this side. Put in our little cool green under her jaw and in her shadows. Her little snout. And keep the warmer green for up top. Yeah, you could do, that would be a little weird though, Fire Dragon, because albino snakes actually are yellow. So they're yellowish. So a blue flame would kind of turn everything greenish, because you have to think about how your colors are combining. You could go though with a green flame. It would be interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, oranges, you could go more orange. You could go red. Red could be cool. Like a ruby red or magenta. That might be interesting. Really could go with any color of Sorcerer's Fire, I guess. Yeah, it's just, you always want to think about when you're choosing, and I talked about this a little bit on yesterday's stream when we started this, when I was blocking in highlights. But what you want to figure out, if you're looking at your color of light first, you always want them to play well together. Like when you're doing this, like you don't want to go, like if you want to be cognizant of the fact of if you're doing an albino snake, it's going to be more yellow. So if you do a blue light, things are going to shift green, and that could look really cool. And you may decide to do that you want to do that, but you do have to like kind of spare a thought for it. Like you kind of have to be conscious of the fact and not just, you know, if you're going to paint an albino snake that's just pure white, that's different, of course. Because nothing says you have to go naturalistic on your snakes. You could say that she's a sorceress, and so she's a silver white snake, which would look pretty. Would look very pretty. I kind of think an albino with magenta fire might be fun. Maybe that's just me though. I'm gonna mix up some pure white, because here and there I want it. Mostly I want it in case I have to touch up any of my underpainting here. She is coming, like, you can see the colors are coming together now. See her? Yeah, she's, like, coming out. I like how she looks on camera. She's very convincing so far. We need more gold and yellow up at the top of her arms, though. Yeah, actually, albino snakes look really cool. If you look, but if you look at Google albino reptiles, for example, or albino alligator, albino snake, they do tend to have a lot of yellow in their scales. And it's just the absence of pigment. I think it's just the base color of the skin at that point is with a lack of pigment. It's just a yellowish, kind of a dull yellowish white or cream. Haha, I am a Duran Duran fan, Painting Critics. They weren't my favorite band, but I still thought they did some good stuff. And I still listen to some of their music. Alrighty. And now that I blocked that in, I feel like I've missed out a bit on texture. So I want to bring in these scales a little bit. Bring them back. Get my scales back. Throw in a little bit green to interfere with that yellow blob that I made. That's better. Yeah, I decided I didn't like just blocking in the yellow. I like suggesting some of the texture up there. Oh, albino leopard gecko. And does he have a lot of yellow in his scales, Dogfather? That sounds like a pretty lizard. I think lizards are pretty. I've never owned one. I've never wanted to own one as a pet, but I think they're very interesting creatures. I love seeing them in the wild. We had a really cool tree lizard of some sort in our old house in Texas. He used to come down and sit in our tree out back. He was pretty cool, like a horned lizard. I didn't know if he was an actual horned lizard, because I didn't know if they were arboreal, but oh, shiny scales are gonna have spot highlights. Yeah, I mean, we've already got a dark shadow, right? So taking these shiny is quite simple. You would need under reflection, remember, just like with NMM. So if these were shiny, I would definitely have to have bounce reflective light down here. And I would also have a very sharp white popped highlight on them, or near white, I would have to go up to this. I'd probably mix an even paler yellow, because you really want to be hot with your highlights. I mean, almost like I did up here, although this I want to kind of tone down a little. Just to blend in. It annoys me that it's not blending very well. There we go. Better. This is why having all your colors open is a good thing, so you can tune them and make them less poppy. But the more, like, you'd want to be really dead on with your light sourcing and really know where to put that bright pop of light to get the shiny effect on scales. This would be difficult with a strong lighting effect like this. I would say it would be. It's not a difficult thing. It is if you're a beginner, because you're trying to wrap yourself around. At that point, you've gone from trying to wrap your head around lighting and colored light on surfaces, and you've gone to, and I want to make it NMM. So you have then complicated everything extremely, which you can do. It's up to you. But I usually recommend trying one technique, especially when they're conceptual techniques, as these are. So you want to tackle the way that light falls until you've got it, like you feel confident about it. And your colored light source, you want to tackle that in a way that you feel confident about. And then you want to be good at NMM, so you can be confident about how you're doing that. So yellow side along with pinks. Cream white. Yeah, okay. Pretty Dogfather. Sounds like a very pretty lizard. Alrighty, what was I doing? I was looking at the back side of her hands. I'm going to keep those. They would appear dark because they're against the bright of the fireball, but I do want some greens in there. Just a little bit of a glaze of green, I think. And I probably want to bring out the fingers a little bit. They're kind of somewhat buried in the fire. And I put white over them just because I was blocking stuff in, but I do need to bring those back. So I do need just a little bit of pure black open on my table at that point. Sit, stay, snake person. There, good. Let me get some black out. I got about 20 minutes left. We should be able to map in these hands a little bit better and really bring our light sourcing in, because this needs to be right where these hands are next to this fireball need to be really light and bright. They need to be much more yellow. So let's try to map in these little fingers. Kind of almost want them to look charred to bring out their details. And I think there's a finger right here as well. There, and if I kind of stipple, I think I'll be able to suggest the fingers in there. And then I can fix that white spot there and make it more yellow. Since the fingers are kind of sculpted like being kind of half covered in flame, I don't need to be precise about it. Yeah, you probably want to go a little darker, because if you go bleached linen, it'll not look quite dark enough. Maybe creamy ivory highlighted with bleached linen. But yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't usually take request Mathifile because I pretty much grab what I've got and what I'm kind of inspired to paint. If you're a patron, you can request things for my Patreon. But I try not to take suggestions here on stream, mostly because then we'd be inundated in them in very short order, and then you have to figure out whose suggestion you want to do. So I usually do not encourage it. You're welcome to shout something out, but I mean, don't expect it. Yeah, if you request on Patreon, that's fine. There we go. Yeah, I usually, when you're painting something white or off-white, yeah, it's natural to want to go lighter than it would, but it's easier to start darker and then to leave that creamy ivory color in the shadows and then use the bleached linen to bring it up. I think it gives you a slightly easier, better effect. So we've got very, very hands that look like they're getting scorched. And I'm going to put some green on them. I'm going to glaze it on. So I want to suggest some color. I don't want them to look like they're being charred. I want them more to look like it's just the extreme of the environment. Might have to build up a couple layers, though, because we've got some very very thin paint going on there. I'm not going to worry too much about color on little fingers. Mostly want the mass of the hand to read like it's not just black, but that there are greens here. Uh-oh. Kiri's twitching. I hope it's not because she's about to interrupt the stream. Especially not right near the end, Kiri. You're not permitted to have a dog emergency, like, unless it's right at the end where we're already ending the stream. All right, let's do this hand here. Nope, no Anne's Patreon for me. I do have a Patreon for those of you who are new. It is patreon.com/paintingbig. I have a Discord where people can ask me questions about the models that they're painting, and I will answer. We share news about, like, awesome models that are coming up on Kickstarters, which totally enables all of us to spend more money on the hobby. We have cunningly disguised this enabling talk as a supplies talk channel, but we all know that it's actually the enabling channel, and Anne just has not renamed it. But yeah, so we have fun. Most useful for giving me making suggestions or asking me questions for feedback on stuff, and you can get feedback from your fellow Patreonies as well, of course. But I do try to give feedback when I have a moment on stuff that's posted on there. So if you are a patron and you are not on the Discord, consider joining the Discord. And if you need a link, just need to message me. If you message me on Patreon, I will send you the invite. Although Patreon normally takes care of it. All right, we've got our charred hands here. Yeah, our disembodied voice Justin is in ReaperCon meeting. Apparently the ReaperCon meeting now lasts for like decades, or at least a very long time.
Well, so he just got back.
Whoa, there we go. We summoned him. The bot needs a nudge. It wasn't linking to the Patreon. Twitch is being annoying as usual.
I think I figured it out.
You figured it out?
Gave him a friendly nudge.
Oh, there we go. Justin, disembodied voice Justin to the rescue. So did they finally let you out of the ReaperCon meeting with your life, barely?
I did, and I actually, not only did I get out earlier than I expected, but I was able to drive home.
Wow, dude.
Oh, am I echoing? Am I in your ear?
Oh, no, I'm not in your ear. You're not in my ear because you weren't going to be present. So hold on. Yeah, that's. I just didn't bother to plug him into my ear, guys, because he wasn't going to be on for the stream. So it's not an actual technical issue that is unknown. It is simply because I did not want to put my earplug in if I was not going to have a Justin. Yeah, maybe you just have Justin from another dimension briefly, you know. I will plug him in for the last 15 minutes. Hold on. As I look for the ear jack, a headphone jack here. See, this is why I just didn't bother. There it is. All right, disembodied voice Justin, you can now talk with impunity.
Hello.
Somebody had a question about class kits for ReaperCon. If there was going to be a listing of what was needed for the class, or if there were going to be purchasable kits, or what. I don't remember. I know the class form had us enter in all the paints and minis that were needed.
I believe that information, like the what's needed for the class, should be listed when you're looking at, like, I guess the things that the before you get to the class sort of I guess organization. I think it'll be on the website is the short answer, as far as, like, will it be listed that what paints and such that you need from a consumer? Yes.
Hello.
But hey, John.
I can explain how it works if you want.
Yeah, go for it.
So basically what's going to happen is whenever you go to sign up and register for your class, there will be a button next to the registration button that will say class items, or, you know, whatever it's going to say for your items for your class. When you click that button, it's going to pull up the Reaper Mini website with a list of all of those items. So this will allow you to purchase certain things. So like if you have 70% of the items needed for that class, you can purchase the other 30% if you need to, instead of getting duplicates of stuff that you already have. And so that's the best way that we figured out how to do it.
Yeah,
So
that's
to
really clever.
clarify- Yeah, so to clarify, this button though that they're gonna press is on the website, the ReaperCon
Right,
Live.
it's right next to the register for the class button.
Okay.
Excellent.
I just wanted to clarify that it wasn't going to also be like on Discord or on. I know it's not gonna be on Zoom, but I just wanted to make sure the information wasn't somewhere else before I told them.
It'll be in all the descriptions of the classes as well.
Let's get up here and do my
there we go.
light. Yay!
Awesome. There you go.
Thank you, disembodied voice, John. Poof! Disembodied voice, John disappears. There we go. All right, that's getting along. That's coming along. A pirate-themed cookbook for ReaperCon. Oh no. Do you have to have a pirate name for your recipe? Yes, the disembodied voices are extremely useful around here. I don't know what I would have to... I'd have to make up some fun pirate name for something that I make. I want to bring this more in yellow. I want to bring this more in yellow. So now we're adding a lot of yellow to our highlights because we want to emphasize the light coming down here, especially where it's going to be really, really strong up here. We want it to really shine, and we want our shadows to stay deep. And bottle of rum. No, but that would be very in keeping with ReaperCon and past sitting out by the fire pit moments. The bottle of rum as a recipe. I'm just trying to hit some harder highlights here. Kind of stippling to suggest the scale pattern if I can't actually see the scale pattern. We lose a lot of our green up here. We keep a little bit of it. It's kind of the underlying color, but the yellow is making the green very, very light and yellowish. Yeah, that's true. Inara has a point that some of them may at some point end up in Bones Kickstarter, but you cannot always assume that. So, I mean, Snake Girl here is a metal model. There's nothing wrong with metal. It often is holds detail very well. And it means you're getting more value for your buck because the metal minis are more expensive. But I mean, the only thing you have to do to metal, I mean, other than mold line removal, which you're doing on Bones anyway, probably, is do a primer. So it's not too bad. I'm just adding a little extra green to the back of these hands. Just a little. I just want a little bit. There we go. All right, that's looking a little better. I think I need to bring up her face now. Yeah, I mean, that's true. The metal models and kids don't necessarily go together. Would be a good instructive lesson on, you know, that things break and you have to be careful with things, I suppose, but... Yeah, I mean, I like resin for the same reason I like Bones Black, because it's kind of gives you the best of both worlds, and it's a little more durable, and it's a little less of a pain in the butt to work with, as those of you who have been watching my personal stream understand at this point. So, all right, we're getting along there, guys. We have gotten some greens in on our snake. I'm going to actually take some of this and glaze down here. So we can at least get the front of the model looking pretty cool. Let's move the palette. Get some green down here. Need to highlight it up a bit to bring the light up since those scales were moderately just a little lighter. But she is starting to look convincingly like she has glowing firelight on her arms and face and her belly and her scales on her sides. Yeah, washers. I knew a guy who mounted all his minis on washers just to give them a little bit more weight so they wouldn't get knocked over on the table as easy. But it does, yeah, it makes them bottom heavy, but if you're gaming with them, it kind of makes sense to... I am just mixing a little bit of my lantern yellow white mixture into my Naga green. I don't want to take these scales down here up very much, but as we talked about earlier, if you do a little bit of a highlight on them, you can wipe out some of that speckling. So we've got a little bit of our highlighting. Make sure you're consistent, and then you hit all your scales so that the lighting is consistent. So now we've got that and that. And remember, we can take our jade with just a little bit of a highlight to bring up some of these guys. When they're not really in the highlight, you can still hit the edges a little bit to suggest dimmer light, or put just a little bit of our Naga on there if it seems like there would be just a little bit of Naga light there. Yeah, I knew a person who used pennies also. I maybe. That's the funny thing when you you die, you leave your armies as an inheritance, and they're like, this is worthless, and then they they turn them over, and there's all this money glued to the underside of every figure. It's like, oh, that would be the amusing part. Alright, I don't want to go up to too high on these little scales because they only had a little bit of light falling on them. They're not as close as up here, so I don't want these scales to be as bright as these scales, unless they were shiny. Then you could go a little higher. Then everything is going to be picking up light. I'm going to go...
Also, I don't know if you're reading chat or not, Am, but Hordista's talking about the use of models for wargaming, and if they're metal, they're prone to chipping no matter what.
Yes.
Which is true, but I think that for wargaming, there's not a paint on this planet that you could put on a model that's going to stay after you've touched it with your fingers however many times, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it is true. I mean, it's why plastic is easier, right, to keep the paint on. Oh, I have gooped poster putty up all around this model, and now I'm going to have to peel it off. I'm like, wow, that's really stuck on there. So we'll have to work on that. Ooh, this is the sticky putty too. Uh-oh, this is going to be fun. Okay, so when you do this, this will be a learning opportunity for Anne has used too much goopy putty. Usually, you can use it as itself. You can use it as a pull putty off tool. And you probably are going to need to work on it because at this point it's like bad bubble gum.
Actually, Anne, do you think it's possible to put enough of several compounded layers of dull coat on a mini to prevent chipping or rub off at any point?
Metal, you mean? Metal model? I think you could get close to it. I mean, okay, if you want to do that, the way you do it is you put a gloss sealer down first and then spray a dull coat.
Okay, so you'd compound it that way.
Well,
Alright.
that's the way people do it if they want really indestructible coats. Because gloss sealer is usually spray gloss sealer is thicker but it's really shiny. So it's gonna like really put a shellac coat on your lacquer coat on your model, but it's gonna be shiny as blazes. But if you put a like Tester's dull coat over the top of it, you can kill most of that and get as close to indestructible as you can. I mean, you may not ever get truly indestructible. Yeah, just what Inara just said for you. Heavy gloss and dull coat. Yeah, I'm off screen because I am reaching for poster putty to try to fix my problem with my poster putty. Because when your poster putty is being a brat, sometimes you have to bring in poster putty that is nicer to take it all off. So what happened here is that I used some very old poster putty and it's very goopy, and I didn't realize how goopy it was at the beginning. And so I'm having to bring in normal poster putty to pull it off of the model. Sadly, this is a thing when your poster putty gets old and crotchety. So obviously I need to get it off of the scales there. But I mean, yeah, I mean all the plastic models, all the models I game with tend to be plastic. So, and honestly, if I use a metal mini for my character model, I don't so much mind. I mean, if it's got a couple of bright metal spots on it, I can always touch it up if I'm going to put it out in a display case or something. Yeah, I do like poster putty. This is actually the first time this has happened to me in like a decade with this goopy putty. I think I just, because I think I mentioned to you guys, this is a very old miniatures holder because it's the Red Bull shot, and I haven't drunk these for years. Like, really years, like almost 20 years. So my poster putty on it just had gotten so old, and I had run into this. Normally, I use poster putty for models all the time and never have a problem with it. But you can also use double-sided tape. You can also use hot glue, glue gun. There are lots of other things you can use to stick your model down to your surface. But usually, with fresher putty, you don't get this horrible stickage. This horrible goopy stickage. But this will be a lesson to me that if I'm going to use any of my older holders, I have to make sure. Because now I've got my work cut out for me. It's going to take me, like 10 or 15 minutes to get all this nice goopy poster putty off. Although I've made some serious progress, so it's not. And off the flat surfaces, I'm having no problem. So my big mistake was usually I do smoosh the poster putty up over the edge of the model, but putting it over those little scales with all that texture for it to stick to, that was the problem. So yeah, I've got blue tack. I've got all sorts of different kinds. You can do whatever. I mean, metal is not porous. Not in a practical way. I mean, I'm sure at a molecular level it is mathophile, but as far as, it's not glass, but it's... I
wonder which would actually... and that's what I'm curious of. Porous in regards to absorption of liquid?
Yeah, like what are you using porous to? Yeah, what's the question? What's the actual practical application of the question, I guess?
I think in this circumstance, though, resin, it's cured, and it's actually, I don't know how porous it could actually be, because any air at all...
Well, that's what I'm doing, Francis. That's what I'm doing, Francis. I'm using newer poster putty mounting putty to just pull the goo out for me. That's what I've been popping around. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would... Yeah, mathophile. I get it, right? It is porous, but for practical purposes, why are you asking? Like, why would it matter? What's the reasoning behind this question? Like, is it as far as how primer sticks to it, or why are we asking about porosity? Porousness. I don't even know what the proper,
Right, because I think the baseline here is that neither are all that porous relatively, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, with primer for metal models, with primers that are meant to go on metal models, they actually micro etch the surface of the metal. That's how primers work. So in that case, they're actually making micro fissures on the surface of the metal, like really, really micro. and then clinging to them. That's why primers for metal work the way. That's how they work. Primers for resin, not sure if it's the same sort of functionality or if it's more of a bonding thing.
I would imagine that to be like a bonding thing purely because of my knowledge of resin, which, to be fair, isn't much. But from what I've been told by both Kevin and Daryl, of course,
Uh-huh.
that the process of resin often has to remove basically all air, right?
Yes, methophile on
So,
primer on metal. That is the way it works. That was how
I,
it was explained to me. Go ahead.
right, and I think that because of that process, resin is hardly porous. I think in that circumstance, um, but to be honest, I mean, as far
Correct,
as
Varl.
application, I don't know.
Yeah, Varl is correct though. Is it like even if it's porous, like that only affects the initial layer, obviously. Alrighty, so I think we're just after 11. We're actually have done our hour and a half. I think Snake is coming along pretty well. We can segue into some of the purple tomorrow to show you how the light's gonna affect that color. But as it is now, we're sticking with cooler greens for our shadows, and we're doing warmer greens for highlights. We're still going to bring up a lot of these greens much closer to yellow than we see on the rest of the figure, because they're so close to this light source. And the closer to the light source they are, the more they're going to be affected. Reaper broadcast this afternoon. What Reaper broadcast is there? Is there something going on?
Yeah, we're actually going to at 3 o'clock, 3 p.m. Central.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have Luca from Miniatures Den to do a show on our channel, and he's going to. It's less of a premiere of a show and more of a waters testing. So if you guys want to come out and see Luca, we're going to kind of see what the chemistry looks like. What if we run into any technical issues? We have not. I don't know when we'll have time because ReaperCon to brand it and give it an intro and give it a show title, because all of that's going to happen. But right now, it's just basically going to be Luca piping into our channel, and then I'm going to have a conversation with Luca for about an hour to maybe 2 hours.
So you're saying I should not stream this afternoon, Justin, because I had planned my Twitch affiliate stream this afternoon around that time. So I should.
I would, if you can. I don't know what your time looks like. I would plan for possibly. I don't know how long the stream's going to be. If it's an hour and you plan on streaming at, like, let's say 2 your time, then we could possibly be done by that point, and I'll raid you.
I'll
right?
just go on at 2:30, I think. Or do you think it's going to take longer than an hour? Because it sounded to me like it's going to take longer than an hour, but.
I would say it's going to take between an hour to 2 hours. I don't expect it to be a full 2 hours, but I'm really not sure. It's based really on kind of how Luca's feeling and where the show's going. So This isn't going to be episode 1, for instance. This isn't really the premiere. This is meant to kind of work out any technical issues.
Right.
Luke and I are going to kind of brainstorm on screen, see what our chemistry's like, and stuff like that.
Yeah, this is a test of the emergency Luca system. All right. So. Sweet. I will probably start my stream somewhere between 2 and 2:30 then, guys. Let's just adjust that then. It's so sometime between 4 and 4:30 Reaper time then, to give an hour to hour and a half for Luca and Justin to work out stuff, because we definitely want you to watch their stream to help with any technical issues. And to give feedback. So I don't want to distract you guys from that. That's definitely not what I'm trying to do with my thing. But we do need to still work toward Twitch affiliate on painting big. So I will come on between 4 and 4:30 Central Time and just work on my horsey then. And that way you guys can still help Justin and Luca troubleshoot their show. Okay? Ready to test all the things? Awesome.
Also, come out and just talk to us, guys. Just come out and talk to us and tell us kind of what you guys want to see. Just kind of see what you want to see Luca paint, if it wants to be this or that, and we'll go from there.
Yep.
No, I think Luca and I will have a blast. We've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks. We weren't going to do a test stream just yet, but then we decided that we should before we actually kick the thing off. So.
Yes. Francis, it's going to be more like 4 p.m. You guys are going on at 3 p.m., you said, Justin? 3 p.m. Central. So they're going to be over between 4 and 4:30 p.m. Central probably, which means that it's going to be around 4 and 4:30. Yeah, 2 p.m. Yeah, earlier in the day for me, which is nice because, I'm on short sleep today, so I don't want to go too late or I'm going to be bad. Hey, Roll to Explode. Thank you for raiding. We actually are just ending up our stream. We were looking for somebody else to raid, but I was working on lighting for Miss Snake here. Today we did the green on her scales on the front of the model, kind of showing how the light is falling from the fireball on various parts of her and keeping our dramatic shading going. And we were using kind of a cooler green for the shading. So if you think she looks cool, do new people, hello raiders, do go back and you can always watch this episode as a VOD or on our YouTube. Eventually it'll go up on our YouTube. Yeah, 1 p.m. Pacific for Reaper. For Luca. For Luca's first show on Reaper. Welcome to Reaper, Luca. I know, time zones are annoying. But I'm kind of happy that I'm Pacific now because it means everything is earlier in the day for me, and I'm much better. I'm a better instructor and generally tracking better earlier in the day. Late in the day, I get very. That's why I don't stream at night. It's because then I get tired and silly, and I'm not as coherent.
I also happen to know that it's 9 p.m. GMT plus 1 time.
Ah.
So that would be Lucas' time zone. He's starting at 9 p.m. We're all starting early.
Yes. All right. Well, cool. Well, thank you for the Raid World to Explode, and thank you everybody for tuning in. So yeah, let's call it then later today. I'll start between 4 to 4:30 Central over on my channel, and if you guys are going, just you can raid me or not, as you wish, Justin. I should be on for about an hour. Alrighty.
I would urge everyone who wants to see the show to come out and watch the show because that's the numbers we're looking at too are also important, kind of to see if the time frame makes sense for people.
Yep.
Because if we show up to stream at 3 for whatever reason on a Wednesday and we're 6 people in chat, then we have to consider what a different time to stream. But we also kind of want to know what you guys want to see. So come out, talk to us, have fun.
Yeah.
And I would actually suggest you come hang out with us too for a little bit.
Yeah, I have to recoup some sleep. At power nap is definitely happening. But after that I will come in and look and watch and see what Luca does. Alrighty, cool. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we will see you in one form or another, a couple times this afternoon. Come help us test stuff, and then come out and watch me try to stick a shield on an arm. Sculpting. We're sculpting this afternoon on my stream. And yes, definitely come and help Luca and Justin troubleshoot his show at 1 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Central. All right, guys. You have a great day, okay? We will see you later. Adios.
Yes, thank you guys very much. And actually, in the interim, check out Sky. We're going to be raiding her. She's doing some cool body paint stuff, as always. Keep being awesome. Spread the Reaper love. And when you guys do get a chance, head over to twitch.tv/miniaturesden. Give him a follow and check out what he's about. Because I do expect us to have a lot of fun this afternoon. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you then. Oh, I think this finally shut off. Hold on. Hold pattern. Hold pattern. I think we're good.